I built the bike because I love the uniqueness of the bike. Yamaha made this Virago from 81 to 83 with a monoshock, and I was looking for the monoshock look, and this bike happened to have a good foundation. I like narrow bikes, so having a monoshock that's from the 80s and also having a V-twin from the 80s, I thought it made it unique to Cafe. Hi, my name is Stanley Tang from Aliso, Viejo, California, and this is my 1982 Yamaha Virago. I built this bike out of inspiration by a gentleman named Greg Hageman. He was originally out in Florida. He built a Yamaha XV750 a couple of years ago. It was an orange bike, and loved the bike when I saw it online. So I ended up looking for parts for about a year. I actually purchased the rear hub on eBay before I bought the bike. So I found a bike that was supposed to be a basket case and cleaned it up so that it looks like this today. The bike took me about 4 months to build, on and off during my free time during the week. I had this bike for a couple of months, and as I was building it, I was trying to figure out a name for it, and I look at my wife one day and I asked her, what should I name it? And she told me her nickname, which is Seabass, for Caroline. So I named it Seabass. It's a limited edition because it's one of one. I put it on the tank so that every time I get on it, it'll remind me of her. So Seabass, limited edition. The front end is fairly stock as far as the forks. Everything was rebuilt, and they have upgraded progressive springs just to keep everything in check. The front hub is off of a 1978 Yamaha XS650, and the front hoop, the rear hoop, and the spokes were made by Buchanan's out in California. The tire size is 120/90 by 18. I love the Cafe / Brat / Dirt Tracker look, so I wanted a wider front wheel. With the controls, I wanted everything as vintage and original looking as possible. So the controls are reproduction controls, and the front master cylinder, I made sure that we got the right diameter piston so that the bike will stop correctly. That's also a reproduction. I've used this before on my previous builds, my trusty Acewell Speedo, and everything else is fairly stock. Again, that was the look that I was going for. My mirrors, I don't like mirrors that stick up, so I wanted a fluid profile, so I ended up using these trusty eBay. A lot of people ask me where I got my headlight. I'm not a big fan of turn signals that stick out, so I ended up finding this cool piece on eBay. The turn signals are actually LEDs, and they're integrated in the headlight. It's a nice little addition where you don't have anything sticking out. It's all one piece, so again, it's nice and fluid. So the engine wasn't in very nice condition when I first got it. I ended up taking some things apart, cleaning the carbs, and making the motor nice and pretty. I polished most of these parts myself with a hand drill. It took me a long time. For the most part, the engine is stock. The carburetors are also stock, but I ordered new kits to clean everything up inside. They're jetted so that it has an open air filter and also a 2-to-1 exhaust made by Mac out in Temecula, California. The exhaust cone was from Cone Engineering in Los Alamitos, California. I changed a couple things around. This is an adjuster for the rear shock. It gets softer and it gets harder depending on how you adjust it. I wanted a pretty comfortable riding position, So I ended up putting rear sets on these, and these are universal. I purchased these at a hardware store, and I cut everything down to size. I found the right helm joints so that everything would work nice and fluid. Another question that I get a lot about the rear hub is where to find it. Again, I got it on eBay. It took me about a year to find it before I actually purchased the bike. One of the hardest things to do the conversion is that this bike is a shaft drive, and with the hub, there's only one Virago, and I believe it's an 86 Virago SS that came with spoked wheels. So this is the only hub with spokes that would fit this bike easily. There's another bike out there where you can do a conversion, but it's a little bit too much work. The front and the rear hoop are again from Buchanan's. The spokes are custom made from Buchanan's. The hub originally sits a little too far off to one side, so I had Buchanan's custom offset it so that it sits back about 10 millimeters to the other side. Other than that, it holds a straight line and rides fine. So with the rear subframe, I actually purchased this from Greg Hageman. He made a few prototypes, and I was fortunate enough to have one of his. It has a little box here that holds a little battery, and the subframe is made pretty solid. I can actually fit 2 people on this, but this seat is a mono seat. I purchased this seat from Moto. They're a company out in Thailand that makes seats for Yamahas, specifically the SR500. Greg Hageman made the subframe, and he made, well, his subframes matches this seat, so that's one of the reasons why I bought it. Again, I like the dirt tracker look, and this kind of mimics it. The rear taillight is from Dime City Cycles. It's an LED taillight that works wonderfully. It's nice and bright at night so that people can see. One of the questions that I get very often is where the tank is from. The tank is from a 65 Benelli. It's off of a 260. I had the tank painted by Smokey, Paints by Smokey out in San Clemente, California. He did a phenomenal job at my request. I'm a big Porsche fan, and these are all Porsche colors. So this is a classic ivory white with British Racing green stripes on the way down, with sea bass that I named. That is actually an old classic Porsche font. I had a hard time finding emblems from a modern bike or something that was big enough that would fit the original hole. So I actually had a member from dotheton.com custom make them for me. Thanks, man. The gas cap is original. Apparently they're really hard to find, so I'm actually looking for another one just in case I forget it at a gas station or something. The front end, again, is fairly stock. I wanted a floating rotor instead of using the original rotor, so I purchased this online from Mike's XS. He sells a lot of Yamaha parts. The front caliper is fairly stock. It just has organic pads in there. With the stainless steel lines, I actually had these custom made from a gentleman from a Honda forum. I've used him for my previous projects, and he does phenomenal work, and he's not very expensive. With the front hub, I had to use a Yamaha XS650 front Speedo so that I could attach it to my Acewell Speedo. Everything is, for the most part, electronic, but it looks the part, and the spacing happened to be correct. Another thing is, a lot of people ask me where I found the front fork brace. And the front fork brace is actually made for a Kawasaki KZ800. It happened to have the correct spacing and the correct diameter for each individual fork. So I hope that information is used to all the Viragos benefits.